How many times have you got up in the morning and you feel after you've maybe even just had your coffee that you're ready to go back to bed? Well, I can honestly say, hello, that's me. Too many mornings. Us women, we wanted the vote and we wanted all of these things, but we didn't realize that what we were asking for was just to add on to everything else that we were doing. And unfortunately enough, that's what we end up having this fatigue that we overrun ourselves. But also, there's more to it. So today we're going to be talking just about that. Hi, my name is Glenda Kroll, and welcome to Let's Get Real. We're going to be getting down and dirty and discussing some of the realities of the way life really is. So, welcome today, and this is my host as well.
Everybody, I am Nicole Harvick, and Glenda's not kidding when she talks about tiredness or fatigue. And this is just one of those days that, Glenda, I'm going to warn you, if you see me slide out of my chair, I'll just kind of raise my hand from the floor or tap out or something because, I've been on the road for 4 weeks and I'm really tired today. So I guess everything has just caught up with me. So when I was going over our guest today and all her fabulous information we're going to receive, I got really excited. So I'm hoping she's going to cure me today. We'll see. But anyway, our guest today is a naturopathic physician, which I absolutely love. I'm not that allopathic girl, so this is going to be a fun interview. And what she's going to talk about is chronic fatigue, brain fog, which I'm not even going to go there, and long COVID recovery. Her mission is to guide you to restore your energy. And I can't wait to hear about that. And one of the things she says is knowing the number one cause of your fatigue is the first step to build back your energy. So I want to welcome to the stage, and I'm going to say this really slow, Dr. Jenny Tufenkian. I hope I'm right.
You did so well. Yes, great. I'm excited to be here with both of you amazing women today.
Welcome, Dr. Jenny. That's what we call her, Dr. Jenny. And she is a darling of a woman. And you know what? She's a wealth of information. And I just totally adore this woman because she talks sense. And that's what I love. She talks in regarding what the problem really is. So let's start today by maybe giving everybody, a little bit of synopsis of how this all came to be. How did you decide to become a doctor?
Yeah, well, that journey is a little bit of a long one. I'll give you the abbreviated version, which is really when I found myself unexpectedly pregnant and single, and with a broken knee, so I couldn't do the things I used to do for money, which was professionally bake. I had a degree in political sociology, was trying to figure out what to do next in my life. And I had this massive insight once I'd committed to being this kid's mom for at least 18 years. We know it goes on further than that. He's now 33. That I had this real insight that I'd always wanted to be a physician, but I didn't think I was smart enough. I had gotten a C in a high school biology class. I didn't even study for the test, but I figured because I got the C, I was stupid. Once I told the guy I was babysitting for was a gastroenterologist, and he's like, well, did you study? And once he told me how to study and I took a test, I got an A plus, but I still had this conception that I was not smart enough to become a physician. When I started realizing that I could actually do this, and I started putting the pieces together of my life, and I started looking at who I was and what my passions were. As a child, my escape fantasy was to run away to the woods of Colorado and learn how to use healing plants to heal.
Oh.
Very strange, bizarre escape fantasy for an 8-year-old. When I was 11 and in 6th grade in the 70s, when everybody's eating bologna and Cheetos and space food, I was making my own whole wheat bread, bringing raw peppers, raw mushrooms, and hunks of cheese for my lunch. Freak, right? I was handing out vitamin C to people. And then as I got into high school, I was everybody's counselor, and I would hold counseling sessions in the cemetery if grandpa had cancer or broke up with your best girlfriend or whatever it was. And I started putting all these pieces together and realized that when I understood what naturopathic medicine was, which is where I get to be a primary care doctor, and I get to touch all aspects of somebody's being, not just their physical, but their physical, their mental, emotional, and their energetic being. And I get to collect from so many tools, healing tools, old and new, to be able to figure out what is the right toolkit for this person sitting in front of me right now, so that you can be empowered. And this is where I brought in my political sociology background. What do we need? We need to be empowered. We need to be educated. We need to be able to think critically, to be active, not just as political citizens here, day after election day in the United States, but also as active participants in our own health. We all know the healthcare system is broken and needs a revolution of its own to better healing. And part of this is for us to understand what runs us better. And so that's my mission. That's what I feel like I'm here for, and that's my work, and I absolutely love it. So that's why I became a doctor.
I love it. And you know what? We do need to empower ourselves and look after our own bodies. And we have to understand because, when you go through to the doctors, how sometimes they will push you away because you can say, well, I know something's wrong. And they'll say, well, nothing's there. Well, you know what? You got to know your own body.
You do. You do.
And
And I always say nobody knows your body better than you do. Now, a physician may have a lot of expertise and be able to guide you, and it's good to tap into their wisdom and training to help you, but you know you. If you know it's not right, you need to keep looking and seeking somebody who's willing to listen to you until you get the answers that resonate with you and you're like, "Yes, this is what I need to do next." Yeah.
yeah, and be your own advocate, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And I'm very,
Yeah.
very curious. Do you have patients that have come to you because of that exact scenario?
Oh yeah, many, many, many. Unfortunately, yes, especially in the area that I work in, which is with people with myalgic encephalitis, chronic fatigue, and long COVID. This has been a condition that people have been classically felt dismissed, ghosted, ignored, told they're crazy. Not necessarily said, "Oh, you're crazy," but
Yeah.
it's just age, honey. Or, well, of course you're tired. You have 3 kids. Or here, let's put you down to psych and see if some antidepressants will help you. I think you're
Uh,
feeling a little low. It's wintertime. And it's just it makes me want to scream, to be honest, at times. And again, it's partly because why would you disbelieve what somebody is telling you about what their experience is?
Absolutely.
So if you have somebody who's coming in, let's talk about a few things. What I
Mhm.
want to talk about is chronic fatigue. Is it automatically only related to long COVID, or there's I find sometimes there's just too many things on my plate, and I feel at the end of a day, or maybe even the middle of a day, that I just can't keep going. Um, so it's all the balls in the air that we keep on going and taking on more of.
Right, right. Yeah, I think the question you're getting to is a really important one, which is, how do I know if I am just tired because I'm doing too much and I just need a break and just need to slow down? Or how do I know if this kind of tired is something where maybe it is something that needs to be diagnosed and I need to figure out what the underlying root causes are, right?
Right.
And I would say that there's a slippery slope in between. There's kind of a gray area in between those two. So the actual condition, chronic fatigue syndrome, is now being renamed in the United States as myalgic encephalitis, which is a way better definition of what it is. We now know from current studies where this is just used for research, but we'll put dye in people, and we can see that those who have myalgic encephalitis compared to somebody the same age and gender who does not, that their bodies are flaring up in their muscles and in their brain. There's actual signs of inflammation. Previous to this, we didn't have any objective way to say, yes, you have this condition or you do not. There still is not any test to prove whether somebody has myalgic encephalitis or not, which is partly why doctors dismiss it. The conventional medical model is very much based on, we have a test, we can say, yes, you have it, or no, you don't. If you have it, we have a protocol or a medication we give you. We give that to you, we retest you to tell you whether you still have it or you don't have it. It's a very simple model. and it works great for some things, and it doesn't work for this kind of condition. Myalgic encephalitis is diagnosed through exclusion, which means that your doctor, if you go in and say, I'm tired, your doctor needs to rule out anything else, from anemia to cancer. Needs to be sure it's not caused by anything else. And sometimes you may have a positive autoimmune disease, but you may have that and myalgic encephalitis. And that's the thing that's often missed, because you can have this, you can have another condition that causes fatigue, and you can also have myalgic encephalitis on top of it. It can be a comorbidity. Long COVID is really, so myalgic encephalitis can be triggered by a multitude of different things in people. And I'll go through some of those root causes today if you'd like me to chat about them. And long COVID is very similar to myalgic encephalitis. I see them as the same thing.
Okay.
And I see that the COVID virus was the trigger for that person to go into this dysfunctional system called myalgic encephalitis. Once somebody has myalgic encephalitis, there can become these chronic vicious cycles that begin to happen between inflammation in the brain and the signals that come down to the body, and how that alters your immune system. You can get stuck in a place of either hyperreactivity or not reacting enough to infections. You can end up with a dysregulated hormonal system. And there are many different things that get stuck in this vicious cycle and start to feed each other. And you really need to step in. That's why it's so critical to get guidance if you're in this, because you need to step in and figure out what your root cause is so that you can stop it. Now, how is that different? How do you know if you have that versus just being tired, right?
Right.
And I will say that myalgic encephalitis and long COVID are way more likely to happen in women than in men. And I think this is due to a couple different things. One, we know that because of our hormones and the way that they respond, we're more vulnerable to get these conditions and how our immune system is affected. I also think that there is a cultural and social piece to this, and a biological piece, in the sense that, you know, frankly, biologically, we're here to make babies and to procreate on a purely biological. And there's a drive to keep going no matter what for the species. And there is this drive. Some of us have chosen not to have kids and use that drive to create other things. Some of us have children and that drive to create, and we do both, right? And, you know, we're very busy with all those balls in the air. But there is still this thing where I'm going to push aside anything, any pain or thing I'm experiencing so that I can keep going for others, right? And a lot of us push this into our work, and there may be some unconscious beliefs of I'm not good enough, or I need to keep going, or, you know, cultural overlays of because I'm a woman, I have to prove myself more, you know, whatever those things are that are cultural and biological overlays. We push ourselves really, really hard, and it's hard for us to take a step back to take care of ourselves. And a lot of us drive ourselves into a place where we are doing too much, and we are at risk for getting myalgic encephalitis.
Oh.
There are 5 root causes, and the first root cause I call the hormone triangle, and it's your ovaries if you're female, testes male, your adrenal glands, and your thyroid. This triangle works perfectly together like a symphony in your body. It always wants to be in balance. If one of those gets out of balance, the others will try to kind of match it. Kind of like if somebody's playing out of tune, the others will try to match, you know? And this, I call this the gateway root cause, because so often, so many of us women in our 20s, 30s, and 40s are on that total stress express, doing everything. As you say, Glenda, all those balls up in the air, juggling.
Listen, yeah.
And
for many years of my life, I was told I had adrenal failure, like it was.
Right.
You know, so
yeah.
What do you do when you're in that path?
Right. So I think one of the signs of what, if you're looking at what the adrenal failure can feel like, so some of the signs, one of the things that I would say is if you feel like you're tired at the end of the day, and like Nicole, you've just been traveling. So my question to you would be, how long does it take for you to recover from 4 weeks of traveling? Everybody knows 4 weeks of travel is exhausting. You know, my dog, I took her, she's 60 in human years. We went on a super long, extra long walk this weekend, and she didn't really want to do anything the next day. She's in recovery mode. She's smart, right? She's smart. Like a lot of us don't give ourselves that. We don't give ourselves the break.
Yeah.
So my question is, how how long does it take for you to recover if you actually give yourself the space and time to recover? If you go full out and you can recover by just kind of slowing down a bit in a day or two, that's honestly probably normal. I have to put this statistic in here because I know a lot of people listening are maybe entrepreneurs, or you take your motherhood on its professional level. I was told the statistic that those of us who are entrepreneurs have energy output of NFL quarterbacks.
Oh,
Wow.
goodness.
And then you start thinking about the team that they have to manage their bodies. They have the nutritionist making sure their calories in are perfect for them, their macros and their micros. They have trainers making sure that they are doing the right amount of activity based on their activity level. So they work up to a game, they rest after a game, they work up to their next one. Are we doing that? Like, Nicole, did you do that for this trip? Did you pace yourself so you had the energy for this trip and then book in time afterwards to regenerate, right?
Yeah, there was just almost no time in between it. It's in some instances, you
Yeah,
know.
right. Yeah. And so that's where I would say that, if you're but how is your recovery is one of the things I would ask. One of my patients was a very, very successful salesperson who worked for a huge, huge international company and traveled to Asia and all around. And unfortunately, she got very ill. She got an infection, which triggered her myalgic encephalitis. And before I saw her, her pattern was this: she would work like crazy all week long and would not have the energy to fly home to see her child because she was so sick. She would just be in the hotel room lying in bed all weekend
Oh,
until she could mount enough energy to work again the next week. And she did this for
Wow.
years and drove herself into disability by the time I met her.
oh, that's horrible.
And so so you hear what I'm saying in terms of it is easy. I've heard this story over and over and over again about us not paying attention to what our bodies are telling us and pushing too far, too hard for too long until you get to this dysregulated state. And it's a lot harder to dig yourself out at that point. Still possible, but it's obviously you have more things to work on then because you become very vulnerable at that
Or
point.
until the universe does something to you that knocks you
Yes.
off your feet.
Yeah.
Indeed, 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 indeed. Yes.
Yeah.
And that was really my story too. When I was the reason I got into this particular condition is because it's been a personal journey for me. When I was a second year medical student, I decided it was time to have that second child. And I was married, and my kid was sleeping through the night. I'd finished my clinical boards with flying colors. I was like, it's time to have another kid. And
Yay.
right, I had multiple miscarriages, and one of them at 17 weeks, and that I hemorrhaged and
Wow.
rushed to the hospital. It was, life or death thing. And it threw me into this big, huge dark night of the soul where I literally was in bed for months and couldn't function and had to have IVs in my arm. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I had severe anxiety, really bad suicidal depression, all the blood loss and the emotional loss. And I'd lost 5 other people close to me that year. It was just a lot. And it was the universe slamming me, and saying, you need to stop and you need to grow in a different way. And this was a huge spiritual awakening for me to come in to understand what it was for me to be me on a whole other level. And I can see how it has served me as a practitioner and in my own journey of life. It has served me because of that time. Yet, when I look back and it's like, why did I have to get slammed? It's like, well, I never took any time out to meditate or to explore because I was in medical school and I had a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
there was no time.
Yeah, but the universe doesn't really care
Mm-mm.
because when it's your time to stop, they will literally knock you to your knees.
They will. And it really also framed my true experience and belief that if we choose to, we can take the most challenging situations, the most challenging ones, for people that are feeling that today, like that this is a really challenging time, that we can always take it as an opportunity. We can always take it as an opportunity to go deeper in, to dig in. What is it that we really want to create? What do we want to have come out of this? What do we need to do so that we can be who we want to be in the world and create the life we want to have? And it's true with your health too, no matter how challenging that situation is. I really believe that those are willing to take it on as a journey and take it on as a way of growing, it can become a beautiful experience, even in the hard parts.
Well, I've seen it in firsthand.
Yes.
Gone through some major upheavals in my life where I have been, as you know, even 2 years ago when I was thrown flat on my back and couldn't walk and all the rest of it. And life came to a total halt because I wasn't physically, mentally, or any way able to move forward. My body just needed to rest.
Right.
And it was the most challenging time because I couldn't do it.
Right.
And I believe it comes at, like as we move forward, even though I've always been one to look after my body, for the most part, eat well. I say for the most part because we still got to live, right?
Yeah.
But to look after making sure the body is strong as you're exercising and all the rest, but there are things that keep on happening. And I think the biggest challenge is keeping your mind in that ability of keeping it. I guess the gratitude is where I start from. I'm going through my own challenges once again. I have a problem on my feet, and now I'm going to be having challenges, which I am, with walking and standing on my feet for length of time. And, I have to remind myself every day, as I do, about um, this too shall pass. Somehow I will make it through. Figure on what the universe is trying to tell me about loving myself, caring for myself, and most importantly, keeping my gratitude really high,
Yeah.
so that I remind myself that life is about being grateful for every moment, because tomorrow may never come for any of us.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. That's right. That's right.
So now that we've gotten to a part and we're coming back into the season of cold weather, and we're all going to be starting to hit challenges, the weather's changing. There's apparently a new form of COVID that's coming out, seeing people again back in masks and stuff like that. Did COVID, long COVID, it's now become something. And then now we've got this new part of what they're calling of COVID, because they're now immunizing people of it. Is this something that's now heightening itself up for the new year?
You mean, are we getting more cases of COVID, and are we going to get more long COVID? Is that kind of what you're
So
asking?
is that how things are going to be sort of coming out in the next while? Because we still got people that are suffering from long COVID.
Mhm.
And then now we've got a new season and apparently new challenges of COVID, or a different
A
form of
mutation.
COVID.
A mutation. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are people looking to? What can people do for themselves to get through what they have and to move forward now with the new part of
Right.
the way things are moving?
It depends on where you are in your health and vitality right now. And so let me just talk about in three different groups. So if you're the person that is immune compromised, if you have you have long COVID, myalgic encephalitis, some sort of autoimmune condition, or some other reason why your health is really challenged right now, then my best advice for you is to be sure that you have the team and the resources together, that you're addressing your health foundations, your 5 health foundations, and your 5 root causes of what is going on with you that's making your body dysregulated in this way, and that you stay on it during the season. It's so easy during the holiday season for everyone, no matter which one of these 3 buckets you're in, everyone, all of us during the holiday seasons, it's like, ah, a little bit of Halloween candy, a little bit of extra pie and whipped cream at Thanksgiving, a little bit of this, a little of that, a little of this, a little of that. And then at one point it's like, oh, whatever, throw in the towel, I'll take care of it in January. And really, for all of us, that's a mistake. But especially those of you, you know who I'm talking about. If you are that person, you know who it is. If you know what your food sensitivities are, this is not the time. My experience is this is not the time to make an exception. This is the time for you to really understand that you're choosing to eat the foods you're choosing to eat because it makes you healthy, so that you can enjoy being with friends and family and having that connection, enjoy the season of celebrations. And for you to go ahead and eat the things on your list that are fun and great for you and bring those to the gatherings. And so I really think staying on, if you're on a good regimen, staying on it is very important. If you're traveling, making sure you take care of yourself. If you want, I can explain my bubble up strategy when I travel, if you're traveling.
Sure.
And so for those of you that are struggling with those kinds of things, just being really extra careful. And of course, the hand washing and the masking, if that's what you need to do, all those things, you know what to do with that. There's the group that I'm going to jump to the other extreme. Those of you that are just super vital and feel fantastic and are like, jogging and, practicing for your little marathon while you're listening to this, this recording, you also know what you need to do for your health at this point. And I advise you as well, because you have your health dialed in. And one thing I would say when Glenda talks about gratitude is health is one of those things we take advantage of. We just take for granted until it's gone. And so count your blessings if you're one of those people. And I am not kidding. As somebody who has had both at different times in my life, I cannot tell you, when I was sick in bed, the idea of just being able to walk around the block was a dream.
Yeah.
Right. And then after 3 months, I got well enough to sit on my front porch, and I was so excited because then I
Yeah.
could at least see the street. You
Yeah.
know, it's like being grateful literally for what you have is going to put so much power in that step of yours for whatever it is that whatever goals you're slaying right now. That's great. So stay in that gratitude around that. And, and I'd also say, in a season of giving, it's like, who can you give a hand to? Because you are blessed with what you have. How can you support others? And that's going to feed your heart back to you. And all the basic health stuff still fits. We don't need to be eating tons of sugar this time of year. That wipes out your immune system. If you go to and get a frappe whatever and a couple of donuts or something like that, that amount of sugar wipes out your white blood cells by 60% for the next day. And so if you have less white blood cells and then you walk into a shop where somebody has some virus, it's easier for you to get it. So if you want to stay healthy, like, don't eat as much sugar or eat more natural sugars, and just doing what you know to do to be healthy. There are tons of botanicals and different things I can definitely talk about if that's helpful for people. But let me first jump to the middle bucket, which I think is the women that we're talking to, especially the women who, like you, Nicole, who, you're doing okay, not necessarily I'm assuming you're not diagnosed with something, but you're pushing it all the time. You're kind of right on that verge. Like, maybe you do have some adrenal fatigue, or hypothalamic pituitary axis is what it's called, or maybe your thyroid's a little bit dysregulated, or you're going through perimenopause, and so you don't have as much natural anti-inflammatories in the form of estrogen and progesterone, and you are more likely to get inflamed and react to things. This is a time where I really advise you to take a breath and decide what is important for you during this season. For you, what are the real values? What is it that you really want to make happen? So it may be your work goals for Q4. It may be the perfect holiday for the family. It may be some time for yourself, but get clear on what you want so that you're not just running on other people's agendas. And I really encourage you. There's this thing I do for my patients who need to go on a short-term disability so that they can allow their bodies to heal. They need 4 to 8 weeks off of work to actually heal. And I create a wellness schedule for them throughout the week where we schedule out what they're going to do so that they can build their health back. So for some people, it's meditation, or it's a yin yoga class. For other people, it's breath work. For some people, it's enough time to cook the food they need for their body. I suggest that we all put some pillars in our schedule that feed us pillars. So whether it is that restorative yoga class that you've been meaning to go to that really you love, or whether it's dancing, or whether it's just walking out in nature, or whether it's an amazing date with your partner, whatever those things are that juice you up and make you go, then put those in your schedule, especially now during the holidays. Yes, I know your schedule's packed, but put those things in there because that's going to help you restore and recharge. And I really think one of the ways, whenever I talk about, who gets long COVID, who gets myalgic encephalitis versus who doesn't, everybody in the world has pretty much had COVID at this point. 30% of us have long COVID from it. So it's 30% of the world has some aspect of long COVID. It's no joke. It's not going away. It's just going to keep coming. And who gets it and who doesn't, it depends on what I call the setup. And the setup is the soil or the milieu that your body is in at the time you get that infection. That's all the traumas you've had that haven't been resolved. That's the food that you've been eating. That's the genetics you've inherited. That's what your viral load is in your body from other viruses that may get reactivated when you get COVID virus. All of those things are in there. What your toxin load is, your heavy metals, your glyphosates, all of those things have an impact on how vulnerable you are for your body to go into this dysfunctional thing called myalgic encephalitis or long COVID. So the more that we can do to allow our bodies to be in this place of restoration, the body can be in its natural healing state. When we are on the stress express, we are not able to heal. When we are in a restorative calm state, then our body has a natural ability to heal.
Wonderful. Such great advice. Thank you.
Yeah. So can people actually get cured from long COVID?
I've seen people put it in remission for sure. I think that how do you define cure and how do you define health? I think I feel secure in saying remission because my experience is of my own journey of myalgic encephalitis is the first time I had it, I got 150% better. Could work 17-hour days. I had short days where I was in clinic and then I would come home and be a mama, and those breaks, those transitions were my breaks. I never had that 3 o'clock dip, none of that. I was just full on, could do whatever I wanted, super fit, worked out all the time. Never thought I'd get it again, and then I did because I had injury, severe pain, sleep deprivation, and perimenopause, and that combination threw me down that slide to remission. And that's when I realized how quickly you can go into remission because your body does have that pathway set up if it gets re-triggered, which is why I'm such a fan of people understanding what your root cause is and knowing what your toolkit and what works for you, because then you can know, oh, whoa, I'm around some triggers. Maybe I need to bring in this toolkit. Like when my dad was dying, I was in good health, but I realized that it could be a potential trigger for me to relapse and have my Epstein-Barr virus come back because it was so stressful. So I started taking more of my antivirals so I could not get sick, after he died, which was really successful. But that said, I do believe we can put this into remission. And once you understand what your triggers are, you can stay proactive and keep things in remission. I will say long COVID has its own, it's a bit of a trickster. I don't know if you've had any experience with Lyme or anybody listening had experience with Lyme, but Lyme disease and long COVID to me have some similarities in the sense that you think you're going this direction, they take a sharp left turn. So Lyme as a thing literally shapeshifts. It starts out as a spirochete. It can go in the body and become a wall cell form. It can hide in biofilm, like it literally transitions into other things.
Wow.
The COVID virus, people who have long COVID, some people have the symptoms because they still have spike protein in them. Sometimes people have symptoms because it's activated a virus in them. Some people have it because it's damaged their blood vessel wall. Some people have symptoms because it has attacked their vagus nerve and they feel like they're agitated all the time. So there's different ways that it can impact you. And the more that you have awareness of how to address this, then you can get that down. But what I was going to say is that I feel like long COVID, it can be surprising where you think you're treating this thing down here and you're almost done. And then it does this different expression over here. And then you have to chase that for a while and then come down here. So, the tricky one.
I think that's the hardest thing, though, is just being able to figure out exactly what you have and what, of dealing with it. And now finally they're saying that long COVID is actually something. So that, doctors aren't just sort of putting it under the table and thinking that it's, you're just tired or you're mentally, dealing with another issue.
I do see more doctors being willing to accept that it does exist. The problem I have is that I'm also hearing doctors tell people that there's nothing they can do about it, or that all they can do about it is take a few different medications to suppress symptoms, or do some breath work or pacing. And there's so much more you can do than that. And that's where I really think that we need to get the information and the message out to those of you who are listening who may have this, or you may know somebody who has this, that that's not true. There are many, 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 many ways that you can get your body to put this into remission and get back into balance once you start addressing your true root causes.
Wow. That's good to know.
So can you give us, I know it's not a one-step key, but something that somebody could do, that if they're feeling as if nobody's, now that they've turned their back on and they've got to figure out how they can put themselves back into power?
Sure. Yes. I want to answer that in two different ways, because I know Nicole was hoping that I could cure her today. Probably isn't going to happen, because unfortunately you have to cure yourself.
Oh, I know.
But I would love to, but I'd be very happy to talk to you more about what's going on with you. But let me just answer the question. I'm going to go back to the other root causes, because I think this is really important for people to know just how different it can be for somebody. You can have 1, 2, 3, or all 5 of these root causes that causes this chronic inflammation in the brain and the body and sets off these vicious cycles. One of the root causes, like I talked about, can be this hormonal imbalance. Another one can be chronic infection. So this can be a reactivation of chronic viruses that you may have had as a kid. Maybe you had mono in high school or college and it completely went into remission. But the stress of having just any stress, motor vehicle accident, hard birth, divorce, all of those things can trigger Epstein-Barr virus. Epstein virus is incredibly opportunistic. It's going to say, woo, she's stressed out, time to have a party and replicate. And then it takes over, and it can make you feel absolutely exhausted, like this heaviness in your limbs, brain fog. It's can just feel like you're walking through molasses. That's really common, and there are many other viruses that can get reactivated. We don't even have names for all of them. So that's a very common one. The third one is looking at toxins. We all have toxins in us. As we age, our bones break down, and many of the heavy metals that we've been breathing and eating and have been in our teeth have gone into our bones for storage. And as we start breaking down bone as we age, those metals get released and go into circulation and can decrease our energy production. Pesticides, plastics, all those things. And some of us are more sensitive to some things than others. So beginning to look at getting your toxic load down can be really beneficial to boost your energy. And I think just daily detox practices are great for all of us. And then looking at mitochondria function, which are the powerhouses inside the cells, is the fourth root cause. And those people that, is asking Nicole how how long it takes for you to recover. Some people, if they do a little bit extra, they are way more tired after that. For some people, if you if you do the dishes and the laundry, then you're on the couch. That's post-exertional malaise. Or I had a trainer who said, yeah, I'm fine. I don't have chronic fatigue. I asked her about her exercise. She's like, I exercise. I walk for 45 minutes every day. I'm like, that's great. What happens if you walk for more than that? She's like, I can't. If I walk for an hour, I'm in bed for a week. I'm like, well, that's post-exertional malaise. That's her mitochondria not able to regenerate the energy properly.
Wow.
And so it takes time for all of that to happen, right? It's crazy.
Yeah. I guess we take so many things. I know we take so much for granted, right?
You do. We all do. We all do. And even when I've gotten well, there have been times, I think I celebrate when I can do things, but it's easy. We adapt to whatever's going on with us, right?
Yeah.
So I would say, my advice is, if you're really struggling with low energy, is to start ruling in and ruling out the different root causes. The fifth one is looking at limbic brain dysfunction, emotional trauma, limbic brain dysfunction. So if you have chemical sensitivities, if you feel like you're always waiting for a shoe to drop, you're kind of wired for things to be going, feel like things are a hard time all the time, this can be limbic brain being altered and altering how your body functions. So just knowing that there is more than one root cause, and that you need to be investigating and knocking on doors, I think is really important for people who are struggling with low energy.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And one of the things, since we have you on, that I want to talk about that no one seems to know about
Uh-huh.
are parasites. Can you talk about that?
I sure can. What do you want to know?
Well, I'm on a parasite cleanse right now, but
Great.
and have been on and off for
Yeah.
well over a year.
Yeah.
But people, I had a friend ask. She says, "Well, how do you know if you have parasites?" And I'm like, "We all have them. If
Mm-hmm.
we eat, we all have them."
Mm-hmm.
And those are very disruptive as well. Is that correct? I've
They
even
can
seen
be.
that has been linked to things that, like multiple sclerosis and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of disease, where doctors
Mm-hmm.
say, we really don't know, or your body's attacking itself,
Right.
which,
Yeah.
I don't think our body does that. So I've
Right.
been seeing that connection with the parasites. And I think, I even hear that third world countries go on parasite cleanse at least twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's really true. When I was in medical school many, many moons ago, there was always this talk like parasites happen if you've been camping or traveling in foreign countries. It happens everywhere. You can go out to a restaurant in a really nice city and get parasites on your lettuce, or if
Right.
you like to cuddle your dog, or walk around in water barefoot like I do all the time. I mean, stuff happens. So yes, I think we have them. They can be very disruptive to some people. I don't think all parasites are disruptive to everyone. And there's even oddly sometimes when a parasite may be beneficial for some people, which gets really tricky.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Because they eat your waste.
well, they can eat your waste, so they can eat some toxic stuff that's in you, but there's also something that happens in the immune system. So it's interesting. Some people with some types of autoimmune conditions actually do better with a parasite because it pushes their immune system it makes their immune system less reactive.
Ooh,
And so
okay.
there are actually some far out treatments where people are given parasites to
Well,
help with allergic problems. So just to open up a quote unquote can of worms here. Sorry for the pun.
yeah, literally.
Literally a can of worms, because I think we want to oversimplify the body and medicine, and it's very challenging. I know this doesn't make a sexy soundbite for people, yet it is complicated. So there are some things you can do that are very basic and simple to boost your health. And I would say, yes, if you're having gastrointestinal problems, if you have gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, if you don't feel like you can break down foods, if you feel like you are swollen and stagnant, if you have headaches, if you have skin breakouts, looking at gastrointestinal function is huge. Liver, gallbladder, gastrointestinal. I'd start with, are you eating the right foods for you? And ruling in and ruling out which foods are inflammatory for you, which ones are working for your body right now in the stage you're in is key. Making sure you're getting enough water and getting enough rest, and that you have good amount of fiber for you and good amount of whatever probiotics your body needs are important. And then I do test for parasites for people who are symptomatic, because I want to be sure that that's not making it so they can't heal. And often I find treating the parasites are huge for people. I mean, it's huge in terms of getting energy back. And I find there are certain layers to healing. Sometimes you want to work on the parasites first. Sometimes you want to work on the heavy metals first. Sometimes you need to work on the viruses first. It depends. I will say that anytime you're getting rid of something in the body, you're getting rid of heavy metals, you're getting rid of toxins, you're getting rid of parasites. It takes energy to do that. And sometimes people who are super exhausted, even though those things may be part of what's draining your energy, it may be smart to work on something else first, where you can get a little bit more energy. So you're literally, your cells, not just you, but your cells literally have the vital energy. The mitochondria are working well enough that they have the oomph to push that stuff out.
Mm,
Because sometimes I think we hold on to stuff just because we don't have the energy to do anything else with it.
interesting. Thank you so much for discussing that.
Yeah. Did you have other questions about it?
No. I've like I said, I go on and off. I'll go like 2 weeks on and then a couple weeks off. So I've been doing this for over a year,
Yeah.
along with the metal cleanse. I just use borax, the
Oh,
old laundry detergent, because
yeah.
that's what it detoxes metals. So I use that. I actually, because it's just boron, I take it internally as well.
Interesting. So you're doing really old school, simple.
Old school,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Hmm.
So talk to me about the borax. Is that something that, like, when I heard Nicole doing it first, I wondered about it because, it's something that, I thought it would be very harmful to the body.
It's nothing I can really speak to in a really educated way. I was taught to do borax packs externally for swollen joints. And that was something that I was taught years ago to do for people that had like a Baker's cyst on the knee or something like that, or swollen joints. And that could help draw some of the fluid out in a really nice way. It's actually nothing I personally have ever used internally, so I don't feel like I can speak to it
Okay.
with any clinical experience or education. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wondered with ingesting it, how it would be reacting to the body.
Hmm.
So how long, what do you recommend that people should be going on some of these cleanses? Is there one cleanse or a couple of cleanses that people should really look at doing? How do they decide?
Yeah, I'm actually going to be one of the people that warns people about doing cleanses. I do think cleanses can be incredibly effective, and the the people I work with who are dealing with myalgic encephalitis, long COVID, and really sick, I work them through a 5 different phase protocol, and it usually takes like a year to move through all these different phases because it's not an overnight process. And in the first phase, we're uncovering the root causes. The second phase, we're figuring out what does your body respond to, because we're all different. Some are very sensitive, just a tiniest bit of a fraction of a homeopathic remedy. Other people need the napalm of pharmaceuticals or something in between. And then the next phase is really just, figuring out what, you being able to empower yourself and work with yourself. I really wait till people are at this phase where we feel like the floor has raised in terms of their energy, their vitality, and they have the toolkit and they know what to do if they start feeling like they're tanking. Because that's to me when you want to go in and clean out the closet. You want to, it's like, clean the house first and then we bring the boxes out of the closet because we're going to mess up the house again.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to freak you out. I don't want it to freak out your nervous system and be like, oh no, I'm worse. Or to, trigger an inflammatory response and you to not have your toolkit ready to handle it, or to have your emotional techniques to know how to handle, to get yourself back into your own body around this. So I am one of those people that I'm not excited about everybody in January going, yeah, I'm going to do a cleanse. I'm
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
juice
yeah,
for three
exactly.
days, and and then I'm going to start eating pizza again. It's like that to me is not real health. So I if somebody wants to bring on detoxification into their lifestyle, I think it's smart to do something every day. And I have something I do every day, which is I'm drinking a ton of water every day. I love to put a little bit of lemon or essential oil, citrus essential oils in there because that helps your liver detox pathways move from what's called phase 1 to phase 2. And at nighttime before I go to bed, I do dry skin brushing all over my body, which moves your lymphatic system. It's like it's like taking the garbage out to the curb so the garbage can pick it up. It's like you do lymphatic brushing and it helps move the toxins through your body so that when you go to bed at night, which is when your liver cleans through the lymphatic and does a second cleaning, it's already there, it's presented to them. So I do the skin brushing before I go to bed, and I take a Epsom salt bath where I sweat and I get toxins out, or I take a sauna with a cold shower and I put castor oil on my liver. And sometimes I use essential oils that are also detoxifying and liver supportive at that time. And that's a daily detox that I do every single day just to support my kidneys flushing out. I'm drinking all this water so my kidneys can flush out toxins. I'm
Yeah.
supporting my liver. I take different herbal combinations that are great for the liver, protective and supportive for detoxifications. In my tea drawer, that I'll drink throughout the day are different teas. Some of them are detox teas. I just feel like that's a nice thing to include. One of my favorite teas to drink is I'll take a bag of nettles, a bag of peppermint, and a bag of
Wow.
dandelion leaf, and I put all three of those in a
Mm.
big teapot or mug of water, and that's a great herbal combination, and it's really nutritive for the body, and it flushes out stuff, and that's just a thing that I do. And so I think that, if we can begin to, instead of saying I'm going to go on this cleanse for 3 days, we start thinking about what's the one thing I can bring in that I can start doing today
Yeah.
to add on as a habit. And then once that's involved, what's the next thing I can bring in today that can become part of a habit? Because honestly, we're getting toxed all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, we really are. And so the more that we can do, and then when your body's ready for it, go through some sort of supported cleanse that makes sense for you when it does, whether that's you're doing on your own or you're guided or however it is. When I talk to people about how to detox, I have all different levels of detoxification I'll do with somebody. Like 5 people will come back with a heavy metal panel and they're all flared up with heavy metals in them. And there may be 5 different ways that we will detox depending on what that person's body is ready for and how it's going to respond, you know? Oh,
Great information. Really great information. Reminded me just about when you started about the nettles. I used to do nettle tea and dandelion, and I've gotten away. And I guess that was my reminder.
that's
It's
your reminder.
Yes.
to it. Yeah. Yeah.
I
No
know.
coincidences. You heard it.
No, well,
Yeah.
that's why I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
time to bring it back in.
Yeah, I know some of those things that we did way back then. For some reason, I'm thinking of the herb Pau de Arco, which I used to drink a lot when I was a lot younger, and I've sort of forgotten about. But that's a really nice healing herb. It brings oxygen to the cells. It's a great botanical. So there's so many of our botanical friends out there
Yeah.
that are just there to support us, and bringing those in as part of our daily life is great.
And even taking a moment to have your tea and just actually sit with it
Yes,
and enjoy
right.
it with quietness for a moment does so much for you.
Right. And I would say that's another part of my something that I've incorporated in that I really encourage others to bring in consciously. I think we do a lot. Our nervous system gets pretty jacked up in this day and age. There's so much expectation to be doing and going all the time. We have so much stimulation towards us, the 24/7 cycle.
Yeah.
There are very few times that we really stop. I mean, as a kid, I took the bus and I didn't have a phone, of course, because they weren't invented yet. And so I would just space out, I'd look
Yeah.
at the trees or I'd look at people, I'd look out the window, and it was actually a really good time to just do nothing. We don't have that time. And I think bringing in time to do nothing and then also being intentional with what I call brushing and flossing the mind, because those negative thoughts, they may even be energies that we picked up from other people. A lot of us are energy sponges. We
Yeah.
may have feelings or heaviness or fear or angst that aren't even ours. And learning how to clear our energy field and bring in what we want and be intentional with how it is that we want to be in the world. And then if something feels off, how do we pay attention to that? What do we need to do that instead of walking around with it, like that, with those toxic feelings or ideas for too long.
So, wow, it's so right, 150%. That's what we all have to start learning how to do. How do we turn off? So, as we're getting to the end of the show, we've come to a part where, our life is constantly going. The last little while, I know I get your emails, so I see what you talked about and what we're living through right now. I'm in Canada, but the US is happening right now where we just went through an election. The world is all up in arms, whether it's going to be a good thing that Trump is in or not, and it affects us and all the rest of it. How do we unplug from that so that it doesn't burn us out?
I really think that no, I would say this: no matter who won the election, it's the same thing. I really think that we need to we need to keep remembering what it is that connects us. We are human beings. We are social creatures. We're meant to connect with other people. so many of us in the pandemic really suffered from the isolation,
Yeah.
you know, physically and emotionally. I know I did emotionally during that time. And some of us are still dealing with those repercussions. It really pointed to how social we are. We need each other. We need community. That's what makes us feel safe. When we know that we can go to our neighbors, to our family, to our friends, and connect. And what I really think is important is that we connect with who we are. We talk about connection. When I say connection is one of the five health foundations, the connection, it's connection to yourself. So it's doing that work so that you're in alignment with yourself. It's connection to your higher self, whatever you say that is. Like, is it being in nature? Is it a spiritual practice? What is that higher self connection for you? And then connection to others and community. And I think it's really critical. I think it's critical at this time in this stage of the planet, where we are and the transitions we're going through, that we remember our humanity, and that we remember that there's more that we have in common than we don't have in common. And every time we other somebody else, every time we say they're not like me because they have, you know, their hair color is this color, or they wear makeup, or they don't, they pray this way, or they eat that way, whatever, every time we do that, we're cutting ourselves off from ourselves, and we're cutting ourselves off from each other. And the more that we can come with compassion from ourselves to others and be willing to be brave and bold and have those conversations, I think we're going to make a better planet. I had many conversations last week with perfect strangers talking about challenging issues around the election, and I felt incredible connection and incredible strength. And I know those people really enjoyed the conversations too. I invite you to reach out to those around you, get the support from those in your tribe that know, that love you, and be brave and reach out and start making connections with those who are different from you, because that's how we're going to create the world we really want to live in.
I love it, and I 1,000,000% agree and honor you with that. And I really don't think that we are so different. I think we have more similarities than we realize. And hate is just such a horrible word that does nothing but just breaks up the world.
It does, yeah, and breeds fear in us and creates disease.
Yeah.
And yeah, the war inside and the war outside. So yeah, that's not what we need. We need love, compassion, connection.
Connection, empathy, all of that is what helps us to
Yeah.
grow and lead a better world.
Yeah.
Well, before we end off, I want to thank you, Dr. Jenny, for blessing us today. You are just a beautiful bowl of information, and you always shine. And I thank you very much. I have to get together and have our usual and maybe our own cup of tea together.
Exactly.
And keep it going, and but we never end any of our sessions without our dear Nicole giving us her vibes of what she feels about the segment today.
Well, for me, this is the ideal conversation, because I truly believe that we have a most brilliant body, and our body will tell us everything we need to know if we just listen. And that's the biggest problem is we don't listen to each other, much less just sitting in our silence for a few moments and absorbing what our body's telling us. Because I lay on the couch at least once a day. You talk about meditation, I do that as well. But I just lay there and ask my body, what do I need to know? Tell me what I'm missing. Tell me what's going on. And it never fails me. It might not come at that moment, but it will arrive when it's supposed to. And, for me, just the other day, I have to find a new primary doctor. And the first thing they said to me when I called to make my appointment is, be sure to bring all your medicine in. And I said, well, I don't take any. It's like, what? Are you sure? It's like, no, I literally take no synthetic drugs at all. And so our bodies can heal themselves if we take care of us. Dr. Jenny just told us. And if there's nothing else that comes out of this conversation, it should be that we do have the ability. We are miraculous humans. Our body is miraculous. And if you listen to your body and heed whatever it says, you can really take charge of your health. So it's a pleasure to meet you, Dr. Jenny.
Likewise, real pleasure to meet you, Nicole, as well. And Glenda, always a treat to see you. Just wait till we get to have that cup of tea and that hug.
Absolutely. And just remember, whoever's watching, remember you owe it to nobody but to yourself. And it's, we spend so much time where we are willing to give to everyone else. And even when we're exhausted and our kids drop in or want something, we're the first ones to jump. What we need to do is jump for ourselves first, because you know what? If we can't fill that cup with ourselves, what we need, then you know what? We're going to be no good for anyone else. Thank you so much for joining us today. What a great conversation.
Yes.
And it's time. And if anybody needs to be in touch with Dr. Jenny, below on the description or the links, and you can get in touch with her there. Thank you, Dr. Jenny. It's always a pleasure, my doll.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.